Welcome to episode 193 of Sawdust Nation Podcast, the episode before WorkbenchCon and a whole lot about to happen. Today, talking is Josh from North Country Woodworking.
From Gears and Fire.
So, Tim, man, how's your week progressing? It's been a weird week for me. How's your week?
Well, since last Tuesday, I had lofty goals of getting a lot of stuff actually built. No dice, but I did get a lot more work done on my computer desk prototype done. So, I have basically figured out the exact height. The width is, I know it's going to go to the corner. I've done a lot of design work. Here's the kicker. I've been doing all the design work in VCarve. I've been using just lines. I'm doing basic CAD because I want to see what I can do without SolidWorks.
No kidding.
And so far, so good. It's a front view, it's a top view, and it's answering all my questions. So this is a lesson for all you folks. You do not need fancy pants CAD to design stuff. I am just a step away from drawing this entire thing on a sheet of paper just because I can. But the main, I should say, feature of this desk is not just the different height or the spread that are the available desk space. It's the fact that it's going to have a chamber to where I can put the computer in, but it's not just a chamber. It's going to allow airflow and it's going to be filtered. I designed it to take regular furnace filters to give it all the airflow it needs and keeping the sawdust out.
That's pretty cool.
So if this works out the way I want it to, I'm probably going to use more of that same type of filtered fabric type stuff for the next generation of this computer desk. But I don't know. I'm pretty excited about it. The fact that I could just put on music and just scribble stuff in VCarve. And this is an old version of VCarve. So I'm getting it all figured out, and I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, that's pretty cool, man. But you have extensive knowledge in CAD too, so it probably does help a little bit. I know, I was actually talking, I don't want to leave your story too much, but I was talking to a young man that's interested in woodworking, and he saw the machines, and I told him it was CAD, and immediately he went to that's too advanced for me. And I basically talked him through it, the progression of how I got through it. And if you're out there using a laser and you're worrying about a CNC, you'll be okay. As you go through, if you're using a Cricut, as much of a press to go thing that's still the basics of it.
Right.
So,
and that's kind of where my design is stemming from is like you said, it's just having a general 3D understanding. Even before CAD, there was drafting, right? And that's what I learned in high school was drafting. You learn how to take an object and draw what it looks like from the front, from the right, from the top, and all the necessary views around that so that you can get an idea of what this thing is going to look like when it's a 3D something or other. And that's essentially what I'm doing. It's I'm going back to my roots. When I draw this thing up in VCarve, I'm giving myself construction lines. So anybody that's done drafting knows what I'm talking about. Even those folks that have done AutoCAD know what construction lines are. They're those lines that you delete at some point after you've translated those dimensions from one view to another. So I'm basically in all sense of the craft, I'm going back to my drafting roots when designing this computer desk prototype.
What's amazing is the fact you're doing that, you took it upon yourself to go ahead and just go after it. But were you always interested in this kind of software and CAD and because I know when I was in shop school, when I was a late bloomer when it came to woodworking. We're just going to throw that out there. I know that I'm going to get some giggles from people here in the chat, but I never was interested in any of this. This is me being completely honest with you. In high school for shop class, it was cool, but it wasn't something I was going to do. So it wasn't my cup of tea.
Because you thought you were going to be a lawyer or something other than a maker of sorts?
Well,
Like,
I was
is
on a
that kind of the
different.
mentality?
Here's another one. I was on the different spectrum of what you call creative. I was on the more the art side. I wanted to be a digital artist, be animator, or a graphic designer, and actually was going and taking vocational schooling for that during that time. So, like, I think what happened, kind of breaking away from your story, and I apologize, was when I joined the military, that kind of went away. That entire dream of being an animator / graphic designer. And I tried to approach that later in life with going to college in the Academy of Arts, the school I wanted to go to since I was in, I don't know, high school. And I got accepted and everything, but I never actually took a class because I didn't feel right at the time. And then when I got into woodworking, it fit so well between being a mechanic and, working on aircraft and flying an aircraft and everything else, doing things with my hands. I can make something that's up here, that creative side, and translate it into reality and not just on a computer screen. So I guess that's a long way me asking you, from the very get-go, from high school, were you always like wanting to do that? Or was it something that kind of later in life developed?
I mean, to that point later in life, just because it is like a feature, or I should say a skill, that you don't really think about when you're a kid. When you're a kid, you want to draw a hammer, you draw a 2D, and then that's that. Dad, make this. So when I got to high school and I started, seeing, the senior classmen, right? They were in a drafting class. I'm going to date myself, but the drafting class at that time was all the old drafting tables. And, we had a couple computers there. But all of that together, it suddenly made more sense to me that, okay, this is the next level of me just wanting to build stuff. Because, up to this point, it's always been, hacking up 2x4s in Dad's workshop or putting stuff together with Legos. So there's always that sense of 3D, but now there is this idea that I can actually do a realistic adult, grown up drawing on paper with, like rulers and pencils and stuff like that. And it actually makes sense. It's not just a kid's scribble. And then to kind of add to that point, in that same room, they also had like an old style plotter where, it would draw in blue and then it would go over, pick up the red pen and then it would draw in red. And I'm like, why is it drawing that? And then I saw the screen next to it and it's what somebody had drawn up in, I believe it was AutoCAD Lite. So this was like early mid 90s. And it blew my mind. Like, I want more of that. And so that essentially was the seed that shoved me down the CAD rabbit hole. That was I should say that was the handshake. Okay, yes, I have 3D ideas, but now I can actually translate them onto paper and or computer.
Okay.
But I mean, I did have shop class in middle school and a little bit in high school too, but I think it's the shop class in middle school that I'll never forget. Our tech ed teacher, so to speak, he always sounded like Kermit, quit playing with a damn bandsaw. But it's the stuff that guy showed the entire class, all the tools that were in there. My dad had some tools, but nothing like this. Oh, okay, this is what a shop is supposed to look like. My dad, I mean, we were not rich by any means. We were pretty meager. But my dad had some tools. We had the table saw, and he had a router. It was kind of janky, but he made it work. He was able to make stuff out of wood. But now seeing this entire shop with a bandsaw, belt sander, and all these other much fancier tools, and all the space to use all this stuff, and that was another seed. It was another facet. Okay, this is another star in the direction that I'm going. If that makes sense.
No,
it's
sense.
all these things in my impressionable years.
Well, I mean, everyone has their stepping stones to get into, if you're listening to the podcast, probably woodworking or, something very close to it. But it just amazes me, I'm gonna go on a community rampage here again. Sorry, if you guys all heard this before. It just amazes me that everyone from every walks of life, different ways of getting here. We all end up here. We all get to talk. We all get to share ideas, and the stuff we make, man, like it is truly amazing. Like everyone is so talented in their own right, and it's just like it's awesome. I actually get to live the dream I had in high school, just in a different light. It is truly that same thing. Am I a graphic designer? Absolutely. I've designed the logos for people that they actively use. I've done it multiple times. I get to do files. All the stuff that I learned is added to what I do now. Like I could take that and like utilize it. Like I was in high school, I was doing Illustrator. Like I was in there and I was making stuff and lines and characters and did a little bit of animation with that and some other programs. And like, not that I'm doing that.
So this would have been like Adobe and stuff like that?
Yeah. And a Mac back in the day.
Oh, okay.
So like very painstakingly doing these things.
Sure.
But yeah, regardless, like, when I got into Lightburn and I saw nodes and I saw lines and I'm like, oh, okay, yeah, I remember doing this. I know how to do this. It wasn't scared away by it. Now, vector are same thing. I mean, like, I can use these different programs from knowledge I gained when I was younger. And then what really helped me on this entire, big machinery path was that first Chinese laser that I got for like $300, because that didn't come with Lightburn. Lightburn was something that I didn't even know existed. So,
Pong, yep.
Yeah. And when I was learning to use that laser, I'm learning G code, stop, go, how to adjust it that way. Like it was very like intensive research to figure it out. My first couple burns, I'm surprised I didn't burn the house down because like I didn't know how to scale power. So it was like 100% power in like a very small area. And like it just charred everything. But I took like 3 months and I finally got to a point where I could do stuff and I did it well and I could operate it. And once I learned about Lightburn, which was quite a bit down the road, I knew the basics and I was able to utilize a lot of Lightburn, right? Because it's so easy. But then when I went to CNC and there was G code there, I'm like, oh, this looks familiar. It's the same thing, just with a router. And you have the Z axis now that moves.
Yeah, we had like when I went to the technical college for my mechanical design degree, my third degree. That place it was called a Fab Lab, and like within that Fab Lab, they had a laser and stuff like that. It was an epilogue laser, and I believe they were using Corel Draw to kind of.
I remember Corel Draw. Yeah.
To run everything, to basically generate the DXFs, and then like I think Epilogue came with like its own software to take those and run it from there. But
the
like
sender, essentially.
That's where my experience with lasers ends. Is like, even at GP we had a universal laser, and again it had its own proprietary like controller program.
Yeah.
But like we weren't doing fancy stuff like I'm seeing like a lot of you folks doing. Like we were just doing basic boxes. We were cutting them out of either 1/8 inch or 1/4 inch acrylic, and that was that. Like I know how to use a laser, those ones, but like you guys know how to make them run.
Well, it's like anything. So like, I mean, like in the companies and stuff you worked, you do what they want you to do. I mean, you might be able to do some stuff on your own, but buying this large piece of, because they're not cheap. Let's just face it. I was actually talking about this today. I think all said and done with everything, my chiller and everything I bought for the laser, it was like $7,500, $8,000. It's expensive.
Damn.
Yeah, it was. I don't remember what I was thinking when I bought it. I do know. But
you were assuming a return on investment, and that is absolutely correct.
I did. I actually got it paid off in less than a year, based on everything, and that's how well I did with the laser. But you have this machine now, and you know you can make images. You know you can cut some stuff out, but then you need to think beyond that, because like a business, you got to grow. You got to figure out things. You got to push all your equipment to basically its limit to get the most juice from the squeeze, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So, Nap, he does that pretty well. Nick, when he was on, he was pushing some boundaries as well. He really was the one that got us, or at least myself, into the acrylic game. Maybe I would have got there eventually, but he definitely took the point on that. I'll give him credit.
Sure.
But like, time has always been a thing. So like any business, it's hard to get time to go ahead and experiment with this stuff, but you got to make time. And I do that every once in a while. I did that a while back with 3D engravings with the laser. I've been seeing someone using the laser for inlays. They're using it to cut the inlay and then cut the female and male portion and inlay it. Yes. And like, I want to try that. So that might be something later on in the future.
So I did see in Jimmy Durez's latest video, he made like a pseudo neon sign of like a bunch of laser patterns, and then he put in the LEDs, and then he poured like a yellow epoxy on top of it. But because it's set inside of an additional layer of acrylic, when he turns it on, it looks like 3D. Like a neon wire. It looks really cool. That's the kind of stuff that I want to try, is stuff like that. But the one thing I've never done was cut wood on a laser. I've never engraved wood. I've engraved glasses on a laser, like a rotary, whatever. But it's, as I'm, like you said, as I'm looking through this community of fantastic makers, like I'm realizing I have only scratched the surface of lasers in my past experience.
It's
even like 3D printing too. It's like I print a lot of functional brackets and parts and boxes and stuff like that. But like, there's some folks out there that can really do some really neat stuff with the printers that they have. Like I'm not trying to brag, but I'm only used to like the big commercial ones, and I wasn't allowed to have fun on the big commercial ones because they were for work purposes and stuff like that. So like I
100% agree, man. And it's a good way to stay humble, looking through the community and the stuff that people are making, and have a reminder that like there's always something that you can push yourself to do. I actually, Stan, he sent me a photo of a person 3D printing some Star Wars stuff and then hanging it up, and I'm like, now I want a bigger 3D printer, because like they did it in chunks, but it was fairly large. I would have to do a whole bunch of smaller chunks to achieve that same thing. But that's the dream. Like we get equipment, we learn the equipment, and we want more because, well, we want to do more. We understand.
At some point, you're going to hit your boundaries, and you want to grow beyond the boundaries.
Yeah, that's it, and that is what I've always liked to do. Like, there was a long time where I was searching for, I say hobby because like I already had a job, but like a hobby. And like, I went through a whole bunch of different stages of like astronomy, like bird watching, like you name it. Like, I did everything and everything in between. And as Heather used to say, like I went all out when I did it, because, I wanted to really get into these things and learn about them. They were more interesting than they were hobbies. I never really held my interest longer than, until I learned to a certain point, and I'm like, I'm okay. But woodworking, man, like, it's something on its own. Like, even when you might be a master of your craft in this one little lane, there are 300,000 lanes to the left and right of you that you can go down, and you haven't even scratched the surface of.
Yeah, and that's just it. Like, I have a lot of anxiety with not knowing everything. That's very hard for me to be comfortable with. Like, for example, like, I have 2 projects in mind that are heavy in electronics.
Yeah.
But yet I'm still thinking about when I'm going to throw the anvil in back of my garage. and somehow put together a pseudo forge because I want to start up some blacksmithing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I
like
hear you.
what all these things that I want to do, all these things that I want to attempt, but I'm continually having to ground myself, and I think that's starting to screw with my brain a little bit too. I think maybe it's because it's the end of winter and I'm really looking forward to spring. I mean, we just had like a 60-degree day today, and the last place I wanted to be was inside. So like all these things, like I think that's a good thing that we're still trying to do something new, something we haven't done before. But I'm getting real impatient.
Well, I mean, part of your personality is who you are. I mean, like the reason I have had the jobs professionally I've had is because I want to know more. I do better knowing more. Like I might only need to go to page 5, but I'm going to go to 155 because I am so interested beyond why does this tick? Why is this rule? Um,
I
and
feel that.
like my jobs has satisfied that. Like flight engineer, you could never know enough until you knew everything by heart. Then they would update something and something would change, and like you still need to go, and like that was a great job. The current job with safety, same thing. It's a deep dive. You can go into OSHA, you can go to NFPA, you can go into ANSI, you can go into all these different, safety organizations, federally or private, and you're just scratching the surface because people become experts in only one. To become experts in every single one, it takes a lifetime and beyond that because they change constantly. So someone asked me like, oh, you're going to be comfortable researching your whole life? Absolutely. Like, as I hate to admit it, I love it. So yeah, it's
so like, I mean, if you were to throw out all your woodworking stuff and start something new, what do you think you would consider doing?
for like not even, I couldn't touch woodworking at all.
Right. Suddenly tomorrow woodworking was illegal. What are you going towards?
It looks like I'm going underground.
That's the right answer.
I don't know. Like that to me is, I cannot fathom my life without it. Like as much as sometimes it's a pain in the butt, and it's been a pain this week. I'm not going to lie. I've been exhausted all week. I've been, definitely pushing myself to the limit a little further than I should be. But, it's still thought. This podcast, right. Like no matter how tired I am or what's going on, I get on here and it's like, it's BSing with the guys. It's talking about the thing I, absolutely love doing. So, fly fishing. Yeah.
Fly fishing.
I would like to get into fly fishing more. I've tried it in the past, but it's still, there's nothing out there as far as like a hobby, we'll say hobby, not just business, that I am as interested in as this. My profession that I'm doing now, I'm very interested in, and I do research on my off time, but between the two, I'd have a hard time choosing, but it definitely end up being woodworking because I get.
Well, you mentioned graphic design, right? And animation. You could see yourself investing a fair amount of time back into that area.
I couldn't sit down and do that. I like creating something that is physically in this world. In animation, as great as it would be to have my name in the credits or something, working on movies as a prop designer, I could do that. I think that would be a cool profession.
Yep. That would be amazing.
I would love to do that. I always wanted to be kind of in that world anyway, but life takes you on these twists and turns, and you never really know. You could be planning for A and end up on Z. Like you just don't know.
Yeah,
and that's the way it's kind of gone. Yeah, I mean, like I had interest in that, and I still do to a certain extent. But when I think about investing my time, it's investing my time in like the stuff I built out here in the shop. I get my creative outlet out there, like just being able to take an idea and turn it into reality. Case in point, this shadow box I'm finishing up and sending out. I changed up my design, my normal design. I last minute decided to go, you know what? Let's just make life difficult and do something different last minute. So, I did a little woodworking, a little calculation, a little bit of, little different design. instead of my box, creating a box essentially for the shape, and then the plexiglass and whatnot, I threw the cross beam in the center of it where it would normally go. And then I took the cross beam, I drew the lines and designed it in such a way where it looks like, where the backer goes on, it sits right in there. I made it so that the acrylic is actually two different parts, so it gives it more rigidity and it gives it more structure with that brace versus just being the box. Because if you're a Patreon, you kind of know my woes on a past project, but
shipping's the son of a gun.
Yes. So, trying to do more, trying to be better, my project's stronger. And you know what? So far, I'm going to knock on some wood. It's pretty much done. I just have to do the fabric and that shouldn't take too long, but it's a learning curve. I look at it and I'm like, well, I would have done that a year ago. Never. But, I looked at it and I'm like, how can I do this? Use the bandsaw, a little chisel work, a little Japanese hand saw, and there we go. We got it. So,
and I think you kind of touched on that point a little bit before too, where you said like if you were making props and stuff like that for movies and stuff like that, there's no telling what would grow from that, because like when you have to make some of the most off the wall stuff using whatever materials are in front of you as fast as possible, you're going to learn some skills along the way. Like you're going to learn some tips and tricks you never even would have thought of.
Absolutely. And my wife is reminding me to make sure I reciprocate the question. Tim, if I took woodworking away and made it illegal, what would be your next hobby?
Electronics and blacksmithing. It makes absolutely no sense. But I have, like I said, I have 3 semesters of an electronics degree. I just never finished it back in the day for many reasons. That's another episode, maybe a few drinks of beer. And even blacksmithing too.
Sounds like a good episode.
Mesmerized by blacksmiths. Like I don't care if they're using regular old hammer or even like a power hammer. Like I love watching that crap. And this past year at Maker Camp, I got to try it for the first time, and that was so freaking cool. Like, I mean, the thing that I made was so simple and dinky, but I didn't care. Like, I finally got to do it, like, on an actual forge and an anvil. It was great. Like, I want more of this. But, again, I had to ground myself and say, look, you have, like, 4 projects in front of you. You have to finish this up. So my worry is that that's always going to be the reason why I never really get into blacksmithing. I still have this dream of putting a forge and an anvil behind my garage just to make absolutely anything. I don't care, because like eventually I'll make something useful that looks nice that somebody will want. It's like I've never made anything functional or useful by blacksmithing, but I'm going to do it. I've checked a lot of boxes on the electronic side of it, but that was more for professional reasons. But for blacksmithing, I would like to go a lot deeper with that. So I still need to figure out how to do that.
I'm with you there too. Like I have a deep interest in doing that. It's unrealistic for me right now. I just don't have, like, I can't do it. There's no way. I'm sure there's a way, there's a will, right? But like, it's impractical, put it that way. And I always wanted, I don't know what this need or what I'm chasing after here, but like, I want to be that person where they're like, can you make this? And it's not, well, I could do this or I could do that. It's, yeah, sure. You're going to pay me for it, but I could do it.
But I can do it.
So that's kind of where I'm aiming. I mean, I really need to, I always say this, I've said it for like a couple of years now, monetize the 3D printer. I think that would be a good, revenue source when I'm not able to be in the shop that could be producing. I just coming up with that original idea or just utilizing other ideas. I printed some of these. You probably recognize these. A friend of ours sent us the file. I thought about putting those on, with his permission, on the our Etsy as Sawdust Nation Podcast 3D prints and using the revenue for the podcast and different activities with that. Try to get that going. But it's just one of those things where I got a mini Prusa Mini, and it's a great printer. But I wouldn't say it's the best printer for production.
Okay.
So I could probably start and see how it goes, and then the funds and everything that gets processed from that, move on. But yeah, man, it's weird.
I think once you start getting really proficient with Fusion or whatever CAD software you end up using,
yeah,
that's when your printer is literally going to start making you some money.
I think so
like
too.
Anybody can find stuff off the internet or receive files and then print it themselves. But like when you create that super specific bracket or box or whatever the heck it is, and you start mass producing them because that's what the people want, that's when you get your return on investment, like hand over fist.
And I have ideas. I really do. It's just one of those things where I need to learn that program, and I'll have to make time for it, and I will. This year is not going to be that year. I'm trying to manage my time better than I have in the past. It doesn't feel like that recently, but I am, working my way to a point where I can. And sometimes you have to work harder to manage time later on. So that's kind of where I've been sitting. But I don't think Nap's going to join us tonight.
Poor guy. Probably got stuck in Taco Bell.
Hope he's not.
He's going to be rolling in here with like 3 tacos. Eating in front of everybody.
He's going to be flying tomorrow, so he might be getting us. He might go into bed a little bit early, too. So I'll be picking him up from the airport tomorrow, and then he'll be spending the night here. And then we'll be leaving here. Today's Tuesday, Wednesday. We're leaving early Thursday morning to head to Georgia. So
okay,
but it's going to be.
Yeah, I wish I was going with you, fellas, man. I mean, it sounds like a good time down there.
Still time to drive down to me. We can sneak you in a cart.
I think my wife would pack up the kids and go to Timbuktu if I did something like that.
Yeah, probably, but be fun for a little while. But yeah, it's fun. It's busy. It's going to be another busy weekend, but it's going to be fun. We have so much going on when we get there, and so much talk and see everybody and hang out. We're gonna meet up with Matt Wackley for a little while at a restaurant.
Because he's right down there. He's like, what, 2 hours from the event, right?
Give or take. Yeah, it's like 2.
Sir, I remember last year you actually went to a shop to visit him.
Wasn't last year? It was the year before. It was the first year I was there. Okay. I didn't make it last year because like every time that I was like, hey man, what's scheduled? He couldn't do it, and then I couldn't do it, and it was one of those things. We got to a point where like, okay, we'll try next year. But let's see. Yeah, he's anyway. So I'll be meeting up him. Nap will be coming, and then we're going to see if we can make it down to a shop or not that night, depending on what's going on. But great guy too. That's the thing is 99.9% of the people that you meet in this community is just amazing people. So.
Yeah. I said Matt is frequently on the Maker Stoop, if anyone is familiar with that.
He reminded.
For the record, folks, I keep poking Josh about joining the Maker Stoop.
And I will be, and that's a promise. I'll make it here. I will be joining that at some point in time. But all fairness, during the weekend lately, me and my son have been watching all the Harry Potters. So
sure.
I've been spending time with him doing that, and that's been, his big thing because, we don't let him watch scary movies. We usually go by like the ratings and whatnot. And we had a conversation about, I forget which one, 4 or 5. And it was PG-13. And I'm like, I think he could do it. And it was just an agreement of, hey man, if you're scared, let me know. Like, it's okay to be scared. It's not a big deal. You powered through all the movies. Even the 7th one for me, the final film, part 2, is kind of like, suspenseful. But yeah, he loved them, ate them right up. And one of the wands I did on the lathe, he comes around and he does spells now.
That's exactly where I was going with that. It's one thing to like watch a movie with a kid. That's another thing to take something from that movie and say, okay, what can we make? What kind of project can we do that's within the theme of this movie? And you picked a one. That's a great idea.
Well, I did it previously, and he watched the first couple that were like PG whatever, but yeah, he really likes the Harry Potter. He must be Harry Potter for Halloween, and there's like a Christmas special that he wants. Yeah, the window's open, so you got to hear retreat. But yeah, it was a pretty cool experience, seeing him because a little pretty intense movies for a 7-year-old, at least in our house, and
Sure.
yeah, it was cool watching his facial expressions and like that moment. Dad, I want to snuggle.
Yeah.
Yeah, and like so that's been my Saturdays for the most part at night, and now that's over. We might do it here and there, but I definitely want to jump on there. You can check that out. I know 2 great makers that go there at least, and I think it'd be fun too. But that's all that time management too.
So you're also going to be kind of hanging out with Daniel from PWN CNC, correct?
Oh, absolutely. We're going down there to help him run his booth and setup, and he's going to have basically anyone that wants to create. I'm not sure what piece it is yet, but basically we'll go through the entire thing. They start a project, and when they end, they'll have something to take home with them. So 3D printing, installing parts, putting it together, like you name it.
Oh, cool.
So like his station's going to be very interactive and very large. It's like double, maybe triple than what we had last year. So
oh, fantastic.
Yeah. So we get to see him. We get to talk to him in person. Great guy, great family. He has a great group of people around him. So very easy just to jump into and very welcoming. So very, PWN or Pone CNC, however you pronounce it. If bare minimum, check out their website, check out the stuff they offer. Great maker because he's part of this community. And you know what? Like business owner, friend, you name it. Great guy all around.
And the guy is super smart. I've seen some of the products that he's come up with.
Very.
Like if he doesn't have your CNC in his repertoire yet, he will. Like that guy is going to figure out some way to make a product that's useful for you for almost any CNC. And that's saying something.
That's why he's doing so good though, is because he listens to the community. And when
Exactly.
the community talks, Spindle, he listened. Spindles came out. ATC, he listened. Spindle or the ATC came out. So I mean, like he listens to what people are saying out there, and like he's always a couple steps ahead as well. So I speak highly of him because honestly, that's how I feel.
He's been on this podcast a number of times too. So if you guys want to go back through the podcast and listen to kind of like what he's got to say, it's worth it. The guy is just a wealth of information when it comes to customizing your CNC.
Oh yeah, and we're going to talk about Fusion and Master of Fusion, like basically all these programs. Like he's building this stuff from scratch.
Maybe that's something you can do while you're down there. Say, hey, Daniel.
I've talked to him.
My name's Josh.
Before.
I'm learning Fusion. Teach me something.
We were talking about different things that you could possibly do, and I'm like, Fusion classes. If you did like a 12-week course where you sat down and did little tidbits, almost like the 30-day challenge things that's been going around.
Yeah, the YouTube one,
something like that, but like an established like course. You know what I'm saying?
Right.
I thought that would be a great idea. He definitely took a liking to it, but like he has so much going on. Right? Maybe someday. I don't see it happening right away.
Maybe that's something I can help him out with. Wink, wink.
Maybe. I would definitely like to see that to come to fruition. But I was. Did you want to talk about your electronic and your design that you're coming up with? You hinted at it a couple of times. Do you want to actually talk about it?
Yeah, I can say this, that it is an equalizer. So, like, back in the day, a lot of stereos you would see, like when the music was playing, you'd see like the lights bounce up depending on the frequency of the
Yeah.
notes and stuff like that. I'm essentially building that on a larger scale in a way. And it's all powered by this guy. It's an Arduino Mega. I have like a whole list of parts that I need to wire up. Like the code is very basic, but I think I know what I need to do to tweak it for my purposes. So once this all comes together, it's going to be a really cool project. And the best part is, this is a project for me. It's not for anybody else. It's for me. Like, I've always wanted to build this, and I'm going to do it. And I'm really excited.
That's awesome.
But it's going to take a lot. It's going to take a lot of cutting and sanding and prep and stuff like that, because, like I said, the scale is much larger, but it's going to look pretty sick once it's done. Like I said, I don't want to give too much away right now, but that's one kind of electronic project that I'm working on for me. Another project I'm working on is I'm working with the Wooden Mustache for the Maker Collab.
Yeah.
I don't know if you folks are familiar with that, but definitely check them out. There's still time to sign up, I believe. But the theme this year is music, and I don't want to say too much about what our project is going to be for that. But it actually ties into my musical background. Since fourth grade, I've been playing percussion. So we're going to be making an instrument along those lines.
Huh.
And I've never made one of these before either. So here's a big old bucket of wild cards into the mix.
That's where the fun begins, man. I mean, like, if we knew how to build something,
that's where the research starts.
Yeah. That's where the fun begins, because if you knew how to do everything, it wouldn't be so much fun. So,
and
go ahead.
I was just gonna say, the one thing that I want to do too is, like, after this is done, I want to figure out a destination for it that isn't my house, because this thing is a pretty large footprint, and I don't want to have this thing hanging out. You know what I mean? So, like, if I could find a better home for that, that's gonna be another challenge. But I don't know. Like I said, there's a lot of schools that are in need of instruments, so maybe I can donate it to one of them. That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, that'd definitely be cool on two fronts. Not only did you make it, someone can use it and they can learn and grow. You might inspire the next generation of woodworkers and musicians at the same time.
Like, hey, do you like this? Do you think it's fancy? I made it, and you can too.
Just like that.
Just like that. Actually, that's an interesting point. It's like, I'm going to be drawing this whole thing up, so why don't I actually make prints and plans for this thing so anybody can make it?
That, and then take the originals, and then you can go frame those and give it to the school as well, so they have the original blueprint they could put on in the school somewhere, and then they have the instrument, and it could be a whole thing. You can go do assemblies, be like, I'm a woodworker but a musician. I could buy my two passions, and then that thing you saw in the hallway with the blue or this blue with the white lines and all these markings, I did that. I did that so I can create this and lead them down the path of the creative journey they might be started on.
This will be fun. I think it sounds funny, but I'm actually looking forward more towards creating the blueprint so that anybody can make it than I am actually creating the thing itself.
There you go.
It's like, it's funny because, part of my 9 to 5 as a product developer is, like, I have to, draw the stuff up, but in order for it to be, made multiple times, like, I have to have a blueprint that goes along with it. So, like, I'm constantly creating blueprints and stuff like that for work. So, like, now I'm actually going to be doing that for something fun. This is great. This Tuesday just got a whole lot better.
You obviously must enjoy your job. You know what I'm saying? If you are that, you do it at work and you take it home. That's great. Do what you love.
I'm trying to. Like I said, it's not the best job I've ever had. I like what I do, just not the company. It's one of those. Let's put it that way.
Okay. It's okay. I work for, one of the worst ran corporations in the world. So I feel you. And I'm not kidding.
You're not talking about the government, are you?
No, I was just talking to the military general. Not that I talk bad about the military at any point in time, but like it's all a corporation. Everything is built around that, frame. And if you took the business plan of like the military and you gave it to like, Fortune 500 company and be like, hey, can you look this over? They'd be like, this is a mess.
Yeah.
It is what it is.
Too many chiefs.
That is. Quick note on that: military actually gives everyone leadership training, and not just a few. So, like, you have a lot of people with a lot of different skills they've learned that try to employ them, and employ them into the workplace. So, it can get interesting at times. But, going back to what I mentioned or hit on a little bit earlier, a couple of weekends ago, I had a friend bring his son into the workshop. He was wood burning and kind of got interested in woodworking a little bit. And he asked if he can go ahead and bring him over. So I said, yeah. And I probably mentioned this a week ago, maybe or so. But he created a Assassin's Creed Black Flag logo with some acrylic and some wood. We got that knocked out for him. So you got to take that home. And then we kind of walked around the shop explaining, some questions, but he really, really liked the lathe. So got him basically on that. I don't know why I keep trying. I'm very bad at making tops. Like I always, like the point snaps on me. So we tried to do that, and eventually snapped. He worked it for a while, and then I got him back on with another piece, and he messed around with that, and kind of went back and forth like that. But he was talking about, or both of them were talking about getting a lathe for the home. So start that kind of journey, and it was fun. It was really fun watching, because you could see the spark. You can absolutely see it. Like that, I'm not sure. Okay, well, this is kind of cool. Wow, they start doing things.
Yep,
it was cool. So I like doing stuff like that. A little once or twice a year. I try to not donate my time. Is probably a bad word, but a bad way of saying it. But like a project for like the Boy Scouts or like whatever.
Because you're not getting paid pro bono.
Yeah, and that wasn't the need to be paid thing either. But I mean,
right?
With who knows? He might be on a lathe for the next 40 years now because of that one interaction.
Like I said, I have a lathe. It was donated to me from my godfather about a year and a half ago. But it doesn't have a chuck, and I don't have any tools for it, so like it just kind of sits there taunting me. But that's it's just like electronics and blacksmithing, right? It's something else that like it's interesting, but like at what point do I do that? Because for the longest time I said like lathing is interesting. I just don't see myself getting into turning, and then one is gifted to me, so now I feel absolutely compelled to learn that side of the craft, and I want to, because I think it's really neat. I just was never expecting to.
Yeah, that's
because if I need table legs, I'm going to go to tablelegs.com or I'm going to go reach out to a maker. You know what I mean? Like that was the mentality that I had. Like I would outsource the turned whatever it was.
Yeah.
But now that I have this, like now, okay, I guess I better step up and learn this new craft. So fortunately, getting back to the community, there's like 732 awesome turners out there that can instruct guys like us on like what we're doing right and wrong.
I honestly, man, like go on Facebook Marketplace, grab a cheap set of tools. If you have a grinder, get them a little bit sharp. I'm gonna get yelled at probably by a lot of people for saying this on here live, but I haven't sharpened my tools since I got them and they were used already. But I mean, like, to be fair, I have everything too. I just haven't set up the system yet. That would be, like I said, it's a time thing. I'm trying to get it so I can have more
Yep.
fun in there. I'm trying to get it so that I'm doing the projects I want to do, and not about how many I could do. So, well,
Sure.
I always tell people the same thing. If you get too many projects, you're not charging enough. Well, I got to take my own credit or my own advice. Wow, words, my own advice, and actually do what I'm saying. And that's kind of the road I'm taking.
Very cool, man. Like I said, I mean, even just like that, how to build a shadow box. You're the shadow box dispenser, man. You're the guy I'm going to go to when I want to learn how to make that stuff.
Well, I actually learned a lot from Nick and Nap about doing the shadow boxes because they were doing a while before I was. But I'm at the point now where I'm making different designs for different ones. This one's a little bit different than the ones I've done before. Kind of looks like the last one I did that went out, but the little bit design difference here and there. And then the next one I do after this is actually going to be a cherry facade that's laser engraved. And it's going to be round.
Oh, okay. So you got a big donut with decorations in the middle?
Yeah.
Like all the medals and stuff? Okay.
Decorations and a place for a flag in there too. So
okay.
Got to work that out. That's all March stuff. I got to make some boxes and a mallet to get sent out, and then kitchen topper, and then that shadow box, and we'll go from there. But I'm thinking.
So it sounds like you got a pretty full queue.
I do, absolutely do. Probably could have got done with some of these projects, but I'm telling you, man, between like every time I turn around, I get sick or something happens, and it's just like keeping me out of the shop. So, Workbench Con, come back, kind of get back out there and get some stuff knocked out.
Yeah, I keep seeing all the footage from. I saw the footage from Workbench Con last year, and I always say, it's not my destination. I'm definitely more of a maker camp guy, but I can absolutely appreciate the good time that people are having down there. So, go there, be safe, make lots of friends. Don't give Nap too much of a hard time.
I don't know. I'm getting a little nervous. I'm thinking about bringing my own towel and just keeping it in my bag away from him. Because I think after last year, he might be asking for some payback.
Yeah.
Bring my own pillowcases.
All sorts of stuff inside of his last year, but that's all right.
That was his own fault. Like, purely his own fault. But I gave him crap for it because, well, that's funny. If you can't laugh at yourself, you know what I'm saying? Like, that's just part of it. But, well, man, it's getting to be about that time. Let's go ahead and wrap this up. Do you want to take it out?
Sure. So, thanks for joining us for the 193rd episode of the Sawdust Nation podcast. This one's a little bit more flexible than some of our previous episodes, but that is all right. We had a good time. We talked about Workbench Con, all sorts of good stuff, and learning about how we got started doing what we're doing, and that's not too bad. Like, I always like to appreciate how people get a start on what they do and how they appreciate what they do. And I think that's important to not forget your roots.
Yeah. Amen. Definitely true, man. I actually appreciate these kind of episodes because sometimes, having just the main hosts, wish Nap was here because I'm pretty sure he has some great stuff to add, but we just openly talk. It's a conversation. It flows. Living some of the history. I don't think I've shared a lot of that on this podcast yet. So shared how I got started woodworking, but not past that. Of course, 193 episodes later, I probably could have said everything 4 times and not remember. But still having a great time. There's, I do want to bring up one point that I did realize. I was taking Tim kind of through some of the stuff we utilize here on the podcast, and we use Buzzsprout as a source to basically upload and disperse our podcasts to all the other catchers there is. And I noticed one of our, not going to let me pull it up right now. It's going too slow. One of our metrics was updated, and I was going to share it here on the podcast because, well, it's a milestone, I believe. Let's go to all time. Excuse me. Come on. So we're getting to the point where we push all time to collect data, and it takes a moment. Yep, there it is. Okay, so since we've published Sawdust Nation podcast in July 2020, we have now 71,633 downloads since we have published.
That's amazing. That's so cool.
It is cool to think that someone out there or people out there have listened to this podcast in all parts of the world and that many times at some point in time. But, I enjoy doing this, and I hope that everyone that comes on the podcast enjoys it as much as I can or much as I do. And we do it until we see that number double. I think we have a lot to share, and I think sharing our journeys helpful to others out there. So, Tim.
So, Josh, where can people find this Buzzsprout stuff? Is there a link on the Sawdust Nation IG, anything like that? Because we have show notes in the Buzzsprout.
So, you can go to Buzzsprout. You can search Sawdust Nation podcast and Google, and it will show Buzzsprout as being we have a web page on there, and there are show notes on there. They can listen to the stream right from that website as well.
Sure.
But our link tree does have different ways to listen to it. And I think you're absolutely right. I think it does have the Buzzsprout link on there. I should know because I update it almost every month with the live that we do. Yep, listen to the podcast, buzzsprout.com. It's the first one. So imagine that. So you can go to our Instagram account, go to our bio there, and go to the link tree and click on listen to the podcast, and that brings you right there. And it will show you, a little bit more than you might see in the normal podcast catcher.
Yeah, because I remember when I first discovered you guys, that's kind of how I was following along with what you guys were talking about, all the mentions and stuff like that. It was all on the Buzzsprout. Yeah, so anytime we get a new Patreon, we usually give them thanks on this podcast, but we usually give them a shout out on that too.
Yep. And I'm glad you brought that up because we actually have a new Patreon that's subscribed to the $3 Cup of Sawdust. KP53 Woodworks. Kyler joined us.
Yeah, okay.
I believe last week or the week prior. So he's actually part of the chat as well now, the Maker chat. And so did Isaiah. He jumped on that as well. So, our community's growing in the Patreon side, and we appreciate you guys for pledging the money you did. And, if you're out there and you like the podcast, supporting the podcast actually supports you guys as well. We get to do, better and better stuff for the giveaways and, give back to the community.
And definitely check out PWN CNC. That guy has an amazing collection of products for your CNC.
And he has his own link in our link tree as well. So you can easily click on that or just search him because he'll pop up. Very popular search. But with that, we're going to wrap this episode up. And, got anything to say?
Keep learning. Stay humble. If you already know everything, you won't learn anything.
I like it. Very wise words. And with that, go make some sawdust, and Sawdust Nation podcast out.
Out.